Ying. We want to start today's conference with a reading of the Land Acknowledgement, co-created by the Muwekma tribe in Native American student development. We recognize that UC Berkeley sits on the territory of Huichin, the ancestral and unceded land of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people, the successors of the sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Muwekma tribe and other familial descendants of the Verona Band. We recognize that every member of the Berkeley community has and continues to benefit from the use and occupation of this land since the institution's founding in 1868. Consistent with our values of community, inclusion, and diversity, we have a responsibility to acknowledge and make visible the university's relationship to Native peoples. As members of the Berkeley community, it is vitally important that we not only recognize the history of the land on which we stand, but also we recognize that the Muwekma people are alive and flourishing members of the Berkeley and broader Bay Area communities today. Thank you so much for your attention. My name is Angela Stopper, your Chief Learning Officer and Director of People and Organization Development here at UC Berkeley. I'm also the program sponsor for this, our 10th annual Next Opportunity at Work conference. Welcome and thank you for joining us. We want to acknowledge all of the UC Berkeley staff who have carved out time to be here today, and to their managers for supporting staff in their career and professional development in this way. We are also thrilled to welcome our friends and colleagues from across the UC. This year is our second year of extending this conference to the entire University of California community, and we are thrilled to have 200 colleagues joining us and want to extend a warm welcome to all of you. I want to make sure to also have a special call out of congratulations to UC Merced for being the campus, not including UC Berkeley, that has the most participants here today with 70 attendees. Around the virtual room today, you're going to see colleagues from UC Berkeley, A&R, Davis, Irvine, UCLA, the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, Merced, Riverside, San Diego, San Francisco, Santa Barbara, Santa Cruz, and UCOP. Such a great system-wide turnout. Everyone, please give yourself a round of applause for being here. We hope we can continue the system-wide partnership for years and years to come. This year's theme is Upskill, Reskill, Thrive. During the last year of change and challenge, we have all certainly had many opportunities to focus our efforts in these areas. With this theme in mind, we have planned a great day of learning to help you continue to upskill, reskill, and thrive. This year's conference has been a huge collaboration, and I want to acknowledge everyone who has made the event possible. The NOW 2022 Planning Committee is composed of 15 staff from UC Berkeley and one of our sister campuses, UC Merced, who have gone above and beyond their regular work and have been meeting since last September to help create everything that you have already and will be experiencing today and this week. And I'd like to take a moment just to recognize them by name. The co-chairs of the 2022 conference are Ying, Kuah, and Lisa Reichert. In addition to them, I want to recognize Alex Reyes, Arlis Nakin, Colin Gurker-Jinsei, Deepak Sharma, Fatima Allen, Harpreet Mangat, Kevin Reyes, Luis Valencia, Michael Thompson, Pam Rich, Rachel Kowalik, and Tara Herstein. Again, I'd love you all to give them kind of a big virtual round of applause for all of their hard work. We also want to give a huge thanks to our sponsors. Our conference sponsor, UC Berkeley People and Culture, under the leadership of Eugene Whitlock. Our presenting sponsor, Better Up. Our diamond sponsor, the UC Berkeley Division of Student Affairs. Our silver sponsor, Berkeley English. And our UC Scholarship sponsor, UC Merced Staff Assembly. And we want to thank everyone who has volunteered their time to share their expertise by serving as keynotes, presenters, coaches, recruiters, activity break leaders, moderators, and facilitators for the NOW conference activities this week. And with that, to officially start the 2022 NOW conference, I am honored to introduce one of the most inspiring leaders I have ever had the pleasure of working for, UC Berkeley's Chancellor Carol Christ. Chancellor Christ, I know I speak for everyone here when I say you are a model for what it looks like to upskill, reskill, and thrive. During these last few years of change and challenge, you continue to be an inspiration to all of us here across the UC. I know you have a special message that you'd like to share with the UC staff. So with that, I want to end by saying welcome and thank you so much for your continued support for our staff and for being here with us today. Chancellor Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Angela, for that kind introduction. Hello to all UC staff. One of the benefits of the virtual world we're living in is that no matter where each of us is located, we can all come together now in real time, or if you're watching this as a recording at another time that works for you. No matter where you are or when you're watching this, welcome. I'm so pleased you're taking time to participate in our 10th annual Next Opportunity at Work, or NOW Conference. How exciting that this event has been going and growing for a decade. And by growing, I'm so pleased that compared to the 2012 event, we have more than tripled our capacity in being able to accommodate over 1,000 UC Berkeley staff to attend, and that this is our second year in which we've expanded to include hundreds of our colleagues from across our UC system to attend this event focused on your development. I also want to say how grateful I am to all UC staff for your invaluable contributions to your UC location. In 2022, we continue to adapt in a changing world in which we experience social, political, environmental, financial, and health volatility. These challenges impact our work lives and our personal lives. And while it hasn't been easy, you've met the challenges in front of you with resilience and integrity. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you're doing to keep our campuses, our health centers, our labs, our agricultural and natural resources, and system-wide programs operating with care, compassion, and competence. I also want to thank you for taking time today to focus on your career and your own professional development. A commitment to continuous learning is not just something we hope to foster in our students. It's important for staff as well. It makes us better at our jobs. It helps our operations run more smoothly, fosters collaboration and innovation, and it's essential if we're to have thriving and successful and satisfying professional lives. Today, as well as during the pre and post-conference activities being offered all week, is a time devoted to your growth. I hope this experience helps you identify and hone your strengths, build and foster community, develop your skills, and be inspired by amazing leaders and colleagues across UC and beyond. I also hope that you'll continue your learning journey and that you take advantage of the many UC career resources that your UC location offers all year long. This year's conference theme is Upskill, Reskill, Thrive. I hope you take inspiration from today's conference to ensure a thriving future with us here at UC Berkeley and across UC. And now I'm delighted to introduce our president, Dr. Michael Drake, who is going to share a brief message.
Hello, everyone. First, I want to say thank you to our staff for everything that you do. Regardless of your title or department, you devote your workdays to enriching the lives of students, supporting our faculty, and advancing the mission of the University of California in many ways. The university has maintained its excellence for more than 150 years, in large part because of our dedicated staff. You make this a great place to be and to work. Special thanks to Chancellor Christ, Chief People and Culture Officer and Associate Vice Chancellor Eugene Whitlock, Chief Learning Officer Angela Stopper, and the NOW Planning Committee, and everyone else involved in putting together this year's conference. Your tireless efforts have kept this event running for 10 years across the UC system. And what a wonderful and impactful event this is. Bringing together our staff and leadership to talk about ways we can grow and advance professionally. You see, we understand that for the University of California to succeed, we need to support you to reskill, upskill, and thrive at work. Through fostering a community of learning, we can significantly strengthen our workforce. We appreciate your efforts and support your commitment to professional growth and development. You can help take UC to the next level. I wish you all a day of meaningful discussions and helpful takeaways to prepare for your next opportunity at work. Thank you, and fiat lux.
Thank you so much to Chancellor Christ and President Drake for those inspiring opening words. We are so grateful for your leadership and your ongoing support of staff. And now I'm going to pass things over to our NOW Conference co-chairs, Ying Kuah and Lisa Riker.
Thank you, Angela, and big thanks to Chancellor Chris and President Drake for sharing your warm and welcoming remarks to open up today's event and launching an exciting day. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 10th annual Next Opportunity at Work NOW Conference. My name is Ying Kuah, and this is my colleague, Lisa Riker. We are the co-chairs of this year's conference planning committee. Both Lisa and I work on the People and Organization Development team, and on behalf of UC Berkeley People and Culture, we are thrilled to offer you a full day of career development and learning. One additional thank you is in order before we start. We would like to thank our partners on the ASUC Event Services team who have been instrumental in so many of the technical aspects of planning and supporting today's virtual event. A big shout out to the wonderful team, Gabby McGrath O'Halloran, Joe Matson, Erica Hannah-Pay, Jen De Los Santos, Julia Simmons, Luke Frank, Marisa Bertwick, and Teresa Ajari for allowing everyone to see, to hear, and experience today's event. What a week it's been already with our many pre-conference offerings. So far, we had 73 one-on-one talent acquisition appointments, 170 one-on-one career coaching appointments, 12 group coaching sessions, including peer coaching and coaching circles, and 2 coaching workshops. With more coaching offerings tomorrow, we will close out the NOW Conference Week with another 51 confirmed one-on-ones and 4 more group coaching sessions. Wow. We have such an amazing day planned for you today, and you can follow along on our virtual conference platform, which you're in. For those who are here with us live on June 9th, you can follow along and engage in activities throughout the day in the order that they appear. If you're viewing this recording of the event, you can also scroll through the offerings and enjoy to your heart's content. Our agenda today includes 2 fantastic keynote speakers, 21 engaging concurrent sessions, additional opportunities for you to expand your UC network, including a networking and notch activity and a staff organization informational room during lunch, as well as our post-conference virtual happy hour. We also have 3 fun facilitated activity breaks that will offer you some time and movement and some energy and self-care.
Wow, thanks, Ying. And additionally, for those of you attending live, we want to point out some other cool offerings that you can access from the virtual conference platform. The UC Berkeley Division of Student Affairs, one of our generous sponsors, has gifted every conference attendee with an ebook. The title is Emergent Strategy. It's by Adrienne Marie Brown. And as you're looking at your screen, you'll find a link to access this wonderful gift on the right-hand column of the virtual website. And to quote a review of this book by Miriam Zoila Perez, Emergent Strategy is a lyrical, explorative, non-linear journey of the book's title, a concept the author defines as how we intentionally change in ways that grow our capacity to embody the just and liberated worlds that we long for. Brown explains at the outset of the book that the book is meant to be perused, returned to, jumped around in more than once. There are essays, poems, exercises, dialogues, assessments, facilitations. There's even a playlist. It's a book for people interested in radical social change who are willing to think expansively about the future and what it could look like, or are in need of help doing that kind of thinking. Ying, I can't wait to add this to my summer reading list. And we want to thank the team at the Berkeley Division of Student Affairs for this thoughtful and relevant selection. Please only download the ebook once, as we have just enough for each conference attendee. Also, this year's NOW Planning Committee has put together an e-gift for all of you. At each of our planning team meetings, as we've been planning this event over the last 10 months, we've been starting out with an icebreaker activity. And it's been such a fun way to engage everyone before the start of our full agenda, to get to know one another and foster a sense of community and belonging. And so we compiled these icebreakers, 43 of them, into an infographic for you to download and share freely. And we hope that these activities will inspire some team building and engagement at your next meeting, or they might inspire some fun networking conversations throughout your conference experience. And you can access the icebreaker infographic just below the ebook gift on the right-hand side of the live conference platform. We'll leave this site up, this conference website up for the next 30 days so that you have time to access these e-gifts.
Lisa, there are so many exciting parts to this year's NOW conference. What are you most excited about?
Wow, there's so much to be excited about, Ying. Between the expansion of our pre and post-conference activities offered throughout this week and our amazing lineup of speakers and activities, it's always hard for me to pick one thing. I'm really glad that I can catch recordings that'll be posted in the coming weeks, and I look forward to 24/7 access of those recordings and all these offerings to reinforce my learning, to learn from so many of our thought leaders that are involved here from across the UC and beyond. And one thing I'm very excited about right now is our morning keynote. Our morning keynote comes from our sister campus, UC Davis. And Dr. Fatima Alleyne is going to introduce our morning keynote in just a moment. And I want to share a little bit about Dr. Fatima Alleyne, who will be engaging in a Q&A with our morning keynote speaker. So Dr. Fatima Alleyne is a professionally trained engineer, Cal alum, and a NOW Planning Committee member. She's the Director of Community Engagement and Inclusive Practices at the UC Berkeley College of Engineering, and a 2022 Chancellor's Outstanding Staff Award recipient. And Fatima, welcome. And I will let you take it from here to introduce our morning keynote.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for such a kind introduction. So I have the honor of sharing with you a brief synopsis of Dr. Tull's bio, and we encourage you to read her full bio available on the website. So Dr. Renetta Garrison Tull is a professionally trained engineer. She joined UC Davis on July 1st, 2019 as the university's first, you heard me, first Vice Chancellor of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. In her role, Dr. Tull leverages her skills and talents to engage more effectively with the recruitment and retention of the best and brightest students, faculty, and staff. She is a passionate advocate, global mentor, education policy strategist, and champion for equity in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Prior to this position, Renetta served as Associate Vice Provost for Strategic Initiatives at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, Director of Graduate and Professional Pipeline Development, and Special Assistant to the Senior Vice Chancellor for the University System of Maryland, USM. She was also the co-director and co-principal investigator of USM's Louis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation and founding director of the National Science Foundation's Promise, Maryland's Alliance for Graduate Education and Professoriate, AGAP, for 12 institutions in the state university system. Remember I told you that's just a synopsis. Tull also served as professor of the practice in UMBC's College of Engineering and Information Technology and adjunct faculty in the Department of Hearing and Speech Sciences at the University of Maryland, College Park, where her work in diversity has been recognized by the Global Engineering Deans Council and the Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology. She is a well sought out speaker who has led workshops for students from across the United States and Latin America to prepare them for graduate school, and a member of a myriad of organizations like the National Association of Diversity Officers in Higher Education. And I'll just say she is a dynamic speaker. I had the opportunity to see her last week, and I'm happy to share the stage with her right now. So Dr. Tull, we are going to get ready. I hope everyone has their preferred beverage. I'm ready, and we're ready to go. All right, Dr. Tull, I am just so excited. I read your bio, I shared your bio, and wow, you have accomplished so much thus far in your career. Now I want you to just share with our attendees a little bit about how you've been able to navigate and pivot to reach such success.
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for that great welcome. I saw in the chat where people said, oh, I really love the energy for this welcome. And I must say, between your welcome, Dr. Alleyne, and all the claps and all of the different things that were coming through the chat, I just really appreciate this Thursday morning energy, all of the love that's just coming through this virtual platform. For people who say you can't feel it through the computer, I beg to differ, because I'm certainly feeling the love over here. So thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you to all the people on the NOW committee and all the sponsors. I'm really happy to be here with you. I am here on the University of California, Davis's campus, which is on Putland lands. We have the lands here for 3 federally recognized tribes: Catchell-Dehe, Quetzal-Dehe, and Yoche-Dehe tribes of the Wintu Nation. And so I'm happy to be here as a person who is recognizing and acknowledging their traditional lands. And so here we go to have our wonderful coffee conversation, our sort of virtual mentoring time. And so to get to your question, I'll give a little bit of background, because this is a question that people ask me quite often. They say, well, how did you sort of get to where you are now? And I never thought that I would be a vice chancellor. This is something, it's a path that I didn't really chart out. I'm from Plainfield, New Jersey, so I am a transplant over to California. Grew up in Plainfield, went to Plainfield Public Schools, and then to Howard University, electrical engineering background, to Northwestern for graduate school, to University of Wisconsin-Madison for my postdoc. I was a professor for a little while at UW-Madison. There were some interesting situations that happened at Madison that I have since, I would say, reconciled, because there were certain reasons why I left and why my husband left. But I went into entrepreneurship for a little while, worked with my husband's tech company, and he was doing work in image processing. And so I did some work with him for a while and really learned how to build things from scratch. So that particular experience of working in technology, working in the tech sector, working with emerging businesses and companies really helped me to think about, how do you develop something from scratch? I see the HU over there in the chat, by the way. Got to acknowledge my Howard folks. But how do you develop something from scratch? How do you look at a problem and try to develop a solution? And then how do you articulate that? So I had to learn how to write strategic plans. I had to write business plans. I had to write about what I wanted to do and how that would fit into the market, how that would fit into what people needed. And I found that experience, along with the research experience of sort of going through the scientific method of being a researcher, of looking at background material and literature and asking a question and developing a hypothesis, and thinking about trying certain things out, and then looking at the results, analyzing the results, and seeing next steps. All of those things then translated to being a staff member and going into administration. And so when I look at that and look at my administrative career, the same kinds of skills were transferable. What kinds of things are issues or problems or challenges? What kinds of things need to be maintained? How can we look at these things and then see how to develop solutions? So my path and trajectory has taken all of these things together. I had a colleague, Randall Pinkett. Some of you may remember him from TV's The Apprentice. He was the first Black apprentice from TV years and years ago. And he used to talk about what to do when there are uncharted paths. And that's one of the things that we find ourselves in a lot of our jobs and careers, where there are things that people haven't done yet that have to be done. And he said, when you're walking and when the path ends, you keep on walking and you chart a new path. And so I have used that as background to sort of chart my own path, because it has not been straight. And a lot of the jobs that I've had have not existed before. I thought that I was going to be a doctor when I was young. My parents gave me a copy of Grey's Anatomy when I was 10 years old as a gift. I played Operation, the game, and thought that that's what I was going to do. Ended up being in engineering later and tried to get close to biomedical engineering, stayed in electrical engineering at the time because that was what was available, and then just sort of moved on through the trajectory. And I know there's many pieces to this story, but I know that there are several questions. So I think that some of the other pieces may come in some of the other questions. But a key thing for the path is I always ask myself, if I'm on the right path related to my career, what is needed in the industry next? And is there something there that fills that? And if there isn't something there that fills that, is there a way that I can fill that gap? And what do we have to do to get there?
Wow, thank you so much. I am taking so many notes right now. I don't know about you. I'm gonna take a sip on that one. Woo, thank you, thank you. All right. Now, following that, you talked about charting a new path. What advice, what is one advice, and you shared Pinkett's, what to do in uncharted paths. But I want you to just share one thing, one piece of advice, just to round that synopsis, that response out on how people might be able to try to identify the next path forward. What should they be looking for?
Okay, so that is a good question. It sort of goes back to one of the things that I mentioned a few minutes ago about looking at the marketplace. And the marketplace for us can be our educational landscape. It can be an administrative landscape. It can be a research landscape. It can be what's going on in the world right now. So, this world of DEI and chief diversity officers is fairly, it has grown, I will say, more recently in the last several years. And it's an area that a lot of people didn't necessarily know that they were going to go into. They wanted to be change agents. They wanted to do a variety of different kinds of things that were going to affect the climate. They wanted to make things better for students, for faculty, for staff. They wanted equity, but all of these kinds of things didn't necessarily have a title, didn't necessarily have a position. And so in the same way that we would look at research and look at future steps, next steps, look at conclusions when we're reading our research papers and things like that. We look to see what's already been done. We look to see what's feasible. We look to see what the market will bear, what the funding will bear. And then we start to ask, right? We start to say, okay, I see a gap here. Is there an opportunity for a position in this next area? And look to see if that is a possible position. Interestingly enough, Fatima, all of my positions, for the most part, I've been the inaugural or the first one. And in several of the cases in my career, particularly when I was at UMBC, I was the first director of the Promise AGEP program, which was a National Science Foundation funded program, multi-million dollars for 3 universities, but I was the first person who came into that. after that, after being a director, I went to my then dean and said, I'd like to be an assistant dean. Well, at the time, there were no assistant deans early on in graduate education at UMBC. And so because there weren't any assistant deans, I looked around the campus to say, all right, let me figure out what an assistant dean does. I was a little bit enamored with the title, I must admit. I said, well, let me see what an assistant dean does, and then let me see if I have the background to fit in with what they do. And let's see if we can go from there. And so that's what I did. I looked at all the assistant deans on campus. I made a spreadsheet to see what they did, what their background was, what their qualifications were, what their expertise level was, and then noticed, okay, well, I could be an assistant dean in this particular area for the graduate school, and that's what I would like to do. At that time, it was for graduate student development. I was already running a grant, several, and starting to run other grants. I said, I think this fits in. It fits in with my university. Let me look at some other universities. It seemed to fit in with other universities as well. And then I said, okay, am I on the right path to get to a position called assistant dean as it fits in with this particular university? And so because I asked that, and because on my performance review, I put it in as my next steps that I wanted to move toward, then my dean started to work with me. And then eventually she was able to put it into her budget. It didn't happen right away. It was a couple of years. She put it into her budget. She started to groom me to do certain kinds of things that would lead to the feasibility as well as proof of concept of having an assistant dean in that position. And after I saw that worked, I continued to do that in every single performance review. Every single year, I always put in what I wanted to do next. And I asked the question, am I on the right pathway for this position? Does this position have a place here since it doesn't quite exist? Is there a budget for it? Is there a mechanism for it? There were some things that I thought I wanted, and there really wasn't a pathway or trajectory. And I learned that in industry, because when I was about to go into industry, I asked for a position that really didn't exist. And I asked for a salary that did not exist in that particular industry. And they told me straight up, they said, well, that works in the startup world. That's not going to work here in corporate. I was looking for a job at IPM Research, and they were offering me something, and I was asking for something that was out of bounds for them. And I learned by working with venture capitalists. They would come to me when I was trying to pitch ideas and working again with my husband's company and pitching technology. And sometimes they would just sit down and they say, well, what do you want from me? And it was my job to figure out what they could offer me, to say, okay, I know that you can do this particular thing in this context, that you have this particular network, that you have this particular net worth, that you have these budgets and these funds that are available for this kind of work, and I want to be able to fit in there. And so I used that knowledge in my own career when I was moving up. When I wanted to be, after assistant dean, it seems like the next thing would be associate dean, but I looked around and I looked at associate deans and then decided I don't want that job. I don't want what associate deans do in graduate education. So I looked for something else. And I found out that there was this thing called assistant vice provost. But I said, wait, I'm already an assistant dean. I want to move up to associate something. So I said, okay, well, associate vice provost, does that exist? I looked across campus again, and I found that there was an associate vice provost for faculty. There was an associate vice provost for undergraduate students, but there was not one for graduate students. So I said, here's where I can fit in: an associate vice provost for graduate students. I can do these things. Here's what they do for faculty. Here's what they do for undergrads. Here's what I bring to the table for graduate students. I've looked at the schools in our system. I've looked at the schools who are in our peers, our peer level. I've looked at our aspirational peers, and it looks like this will fit in. I've looked at the top 10 universities. I've looked at universities across, and I think this is where I fit. And so again, you know, a couple of years after that, it worked out. It turned out, I found in the background that what my dean did is she talked to other members of the leadership team, and she said to them, okay, you know, we think that she might fit in and, you know, eventually be an associate vice provost. What do you think? And what kinds of things does she need? Later on, I found that there were some skills because I always asked the question, what skills do I need in order to fit in? And they would tell me, okay, you need more finance. You need more grants. You're not managing enough money, right? So I said, all right, let me get more grants. So how much is enough? Okay, well, if I get grants and I make it to 5 million, is that enough? If I get grants that are going not just for graduate students, but going across sectors, is that enough to move me to the next level? By the time I became Associate Vice Provost for Strategic Initiatives, I was able to move there because I had moved past graduate education and I had expanded my portfolio to go into undergrad as well as faculty. And that was by asking questions and by asking what I needed to do next to get to the next point. And they would say, well, your portfolio is, it only has a single level of constituents. So you need to spread out, you need to have more stakeholders. And eventually I was able to do that for my university and then work with the system with other universities and spread from there.
Wow. 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 You just described, or you just really prepped us for the next question.
Okay.
Because it's
good.
really about leveraging networks. It seems like you had sponsors, you had really great mentors, you were able to transfer the skills that you learned in one sector to the other sector. You increased the number of stakeholders, and you leverage. What I appreciated about what you said was the evaluation period, setting goals that will prepare you for the next opportunity. We haven't achieved together, tying it right back into what we have in the UC system. This is something that, I'm just capturing and I'm just documenting it all because we should be leveraging that to prepare us for the next step.
Yes.
And there's a few people that we wouldn't mind helping us along the way. So we're going to talk about mentorship.
Yes.
Right. So you are such an accomplished individual who continues to be of service in a myriad of organizations. I imagine you attract a number of individuals who might want to seek you for mentorship, coaching, or even sponsorship, right?
Yes.
So for some of our attendees, it could be a little intimidating, though, to seek someone of your caliber out, to be their mentor, their coach, or their sponsor. So what advice would you give to our attendees who are interested in mentorship from those in senior level roles like yours?
That's a great question. And, one of the things that I used to tell not only my staff, but my former students is that you can have formal mentors and you can have informal mentors. So I'll give an example, and not all mentors are the same, right? Sometimes you can have mentors for specific kinds of things. So I'll give an example. One of the former deans who eventually was a provost at American University was someone who didn't look like me at all, not from my community, older white male. And he had a way of talking and communicating with people, and it seemed like he was always getting results. And so I remember having an opportunity in a session like this, but it was a real session. When I say real session, I mean it was an in-person session, excuse me, where you can ask questions. And so I asked questions about one of his pieces of advice. This was Dr. Scott Bass, who ended up being provost at American University in Washington, D.C. But I asked him the question about one of the things that he really prides himself on. I said, well, what do you pride yourself on? And he said he prided himself on having thorough emails. Now, that might seem like something that, might not be as important, but he said for him, having thorough written communication was extremely important. He wanted to answer people thoroughly, and he wanted to make sure that their questions were answered. And he felt that he had a level of pride in that. It's interesting because I tried to adopt and adapt that. And when I saw that it was working for me, when I would, people would ask me questions and I would try to give them a thorough answer, and people would come back and say, I really appreciate that answer, I sent him a message. And I said, I just want to let you know that I asked you this question at a conference. You answered it, and I really appreciate it because I have followed after you in that method and in that piece of advice. And he said he really, really appreciated it. And when there were other things that other people did in that same way, little pieces of things that they did, I would send them a message and I would say, I heard you talk about this in a conference or at a meeting. I wanted to let you know that this piece of advice was really helpful for me. And if I'm at your university, I'd love to be able to stop by to say hello. And some people, said that they would have the time, and they did that. There's a person, Brian Blake, Dr. Brian Blake, who's the new president, I think at University of Georgia, who used to say whenever he went to a conference, any conference, whatever state or city he was in, he would always stop by to see his colleague and counterpart at the local university. And then if he had an opportunity to try to make a meeting to talk to someone in a position that he aspired to be in. And he's now a university president. So, and he used to have these conversations with me when he was a chair, a department chair, a dean, and so forth. I think one of the things that I have seen people do with me that has been, I'll say, helpful in this day and age. So I'm into social media. I'm on Twitter. So if anybody is on Twitter, social media for me really works. I'm at Renetta, my first name _ Tull, at Renetta _ Tull. And I have had people contact me on Twitter and follow me and make comments on my posts. And then when they see me at a conference, they introduce themselves. I follow you on Twitter and I'm this person right here. And I said, oh, okay, that's great. All right, well, let's talk. And that has been a wonderful way to open up a lot of conversation. The other thing too, that I highly recommend, particularly when we're in in-person conferences, is if you want to talk to somebody, don't be afraid to stand in line to talk to them at the end of their session, even if you're the last one in line. So Fatima, you mentioned last week, one of the conferences that we were at for the ARC network, that was the ARC network WePan run, right? So Women in Engineering Proactive Network. Well, right after that, I went to another conference at another hotel for AAAS, it's the American Association for the Advancement of Sciences, for their Improving Undergraduate Science and Engineering program. And there was a person there who stood in line. She waited until the end of a keynote panel that we had. And so I was still on stage. She was the last one in line. I told her, and she had waited for so long. So by then I said, we have these nice soft chairs still on stage. Come up on stage. Let's sit down. I'm a little bit tired of standing right now. Let's have a seat. And she told me that one of her friends who was at another university recommended that she talk to me. And that particular friend was a person who had stood in line to talk to me at a conference, the SREB conference, Southern Regional Education Board conference, which was held in Atlanta years before. And it was a person who talked to me at a conference. She asked me for my card, and then she stayed in touch with me. She would ask me questions by email and ask my advice. And I would stay in touch with her. And every single conference we were at, she would come back to me. And if I was at a table, she would come and say hello. And soon I was following her trajectory. And then she invited me to a conference. This was at Duke University. She invited me to a conference to be a speaker for her at Duke. Now, she did something that was so personal, I will never forget. She had her staff go to Instagram, my Instagram page, and look at all the food that I had. And then when I went to speak at the conference, they took me to restaurants and had all the foods of all my favorite foods, because they said, we went to Instagram and we know that you love carrot cake. And so we want to make sure that you had carrot cake. And we know that you like, this other kind of food. So we wanted to make sure that you had that for our conference. Don't you know that I'm following up with this person, right? Jana, who is at Duke, right? She's an assistant dean now. And so now I go to North Carolina. I'm like, Jana, are you in town? Come to my hotel. Let's have some breakfast, because I love breakfast and she knows I love that. So like, let's have some pancakes and let's talk, right? So these kinds of things, you know, these building of personal relationships and professional relationships, they turn into mentoring. I have talked to presidents of universities just to say, how do you do it? How do you manage work-life balance? How do you do these different things? Do you have 5 minutes? Can I treat you to coffee? Can I buy you a cup of tea? And if I know something about them, because I follow their social media, right? So I know they might like a certain coffee. It's like, there's a Pete's right down the street and we can go there, or there's, you know, this artisan coffee. And I think that I see somebody put carrot and cake in the chat. Thank you so much. But, you know, tapping into some of the personalized things can be really, really helpful. And then use your own influence to try to see if you can make the connection. A guest speaker, an opportunity to talk to the team, all of those kinds of things. And we're having this conversation now. And I've had a chance to see you at several conferences in the last year. So, so those kinds of things I think do work. The other thing I will say, if people give you advice, take them up on their advice. So I think that one of my mentors, Dr. Freeman Hrabowski, who is the president of UMBC, is retiring this year. And when I used to have meetings with him, he used to tell me, he would say, bring me your CV, let me take a look. One of the things he told me years ago, he said, Renetta, you do too much talking and you go and talk and I hear other people do the things that you are doing. And I know those were your ideas and I'm hearing other people talk about them. Well, they're only going to reference you a couple of times. And after that, they're going to call it their own. You need to write. Like next time, have some publications, have some more publications about what you're doing. And so the next year when I came to meet with him, I made an appointment. And I said, Dr. Hrabowski, I have 10 publications that came out in the last year. And they're in all of these different, not all of them are highly peer reviewed, not all of them have high impact factors, but some of them are opinion pieces. These are on my blog. These were from social media. This one was an opinion in the newspaper. This one was in a peer reviewed journal. And I came with a sort of bibliography just for him as part of that meeting as a follow-up. And when you follow up and you take the advice that people give you, then they want to pour more into you because they know that their advice is going to be on fertile ground.
Wow, thank you so much. You know, I think this conference is a great opportunity to meet some new people that can be a mentor, a coach, or a sponsor, and not to be afraid, right? To take, do a little research, explore, you know, what they like to eat on social media and send a nice little email or message to them and follow them, right? And thinking about, you know, what your next steps are and looking for those people that are in the position that you want to be in one day. So thank you so much. And on that note, we want to, you know, reference our theme, upskill, reskill, thrive, right? And so many of our staff across our UC locations might find it challenging to find time to reskill or even learn new skills to do a different job in such, you know, such settings. What are some strategies they should consider to reskill in times of such uncertainty?
Yes, excellent question. And you know what, because of the theme, let me talk a little bit about upskilling as well as reskilling, right? So one of the things that you mentioned in my introduction is that I had done a lot of work in Latin America. I initially got into work in Latin America through working in Puerto Rico and working with colleagues there, and then being involved with SHIP, the Society for Hispanic Professional Engineers. I gave a talk and the director of the Latin and Caribbean Consortium for Engineering Institutions invited me to to Panama first. Going to Panama, I realized, and also being connected to Puerto Rico, I realized that I didn't have enough skills speaking in Spanish to my colleagues, to friends, to families of students, and I wanted to get better with that, but I didn't really have the time or know how to do that. So what I did was I decided that I needed to be a student again. I took some vacation time and I did an immersion in Ecuador for a month. Now, I had to work this out with my family. I had to work it out with my job. So I worked it out a year ahead of time with my job to say, this is what I would like to do during this period of time. I did it in January, which was a low time where there weren't going to be a lot of students, so they didn't necessarily need those kinds of client services. I worked it out with my family, particularly my husband, who at first wasn't too happy about it, but then he said, okay, well, this is something you really want to do. I said, also, it's going to take our own funds, so I'm going to need to save up some money for the flight, for staying, for the course, and all of those kinds of things. And so he said, and he asked me, he said, well, what is your goal? And I said, well, I really want to be more involved in LACSE. They really welcomed me warmly, and I want to be more involved and be able to connect with my colleagues in Latin America who are welcoming me so warmly. I want to connect with them. And so I went to Ecuador. I lived there for about a month. I finally got to the point where I could go to places by myself and speak in Spanish with people who were there, could go shopping. I could, walk the streets and just be on my own for a while. And it was really, really good. Now, how did this translate to my job and upskilling? It translated because I had an opportunity to write a grant with colleagues to take students and faculty to other countries, and to take them so that they could be involved in engineering networks and so forth. So where did I pick? Ecuador. Why? Because I knew people there, because I knew some of the dialect and the language, and I knew that I had people I could fall back on. So I wrote this grant. We were able to take about 12 people from my university to Ecuador for a conference. It was a Women in STEM conference, and it was phenomenal. After that, I said, this is a model I'm going to follow. The next year, I said, okay, I want to take my group to Costa Rica, but I need to get there first so I can understand the landscape, so I can learn, other things. And on my wall, I'm going to tilt my my screen a little bit. I have the Pura Vida bird and so forth on my wall that my colleagues there gave me before I left Costa Rica, spent some time there, took a group there. And this time I took undergrads and faculty, wrote a grant to do it. But, I needed to, again, make sure that my Spanish was going to be at least on par enough. Took some vacation time, took some, made sure that I had coverage at work, spent some money, all right, a little bit to be able to do that. Now, in terms of reskilling, reskilling can sometimes be taken care of by the unit itself. So let me tell you what I recommend to my staff, for example, when they're thinking about reskilling. I'm thinking about, okay, if there's something that I'm going to pay for my staff, how is it going to benefit them individually in their career? How is it going to benefit our unit? Does it fit in with the mission of the university? Do I have the budget to do what it is that they want to do? And when I'm asking for certain things related to whether it's finance or budget, I just took a course at Berkeley, an online course for strategic finance and budgeting, because I was doing a new budget and I needed some upskilling and reskilling of my own. And so, I was able to make the pitch and say, okay, budget season is coming. I want to make sure that I'm using our dollars, our taxpayer dollars, appropriately, and that I'm a good fiscal agent, having good fiscal responsibility. My team jokes about that. It's like, these are taxpayer dollars. We have to be fiscally responsible, right? But how do you think about that? And one of the things I was able to learn in this course is about goodwill and how you can actually think about goodwill financially. And that was something that I was able to put into my budget presentation. And so there are all of these different kinds of things you can think about when you're reskilling and upskilling. But the other thing I think that is important is to not just think about how this fits into your job, but how does it fit into you as a person? What's meaningful for you in your life's goals, not just your current job. And so, when you think about how you define yourself without your job, how do you define that? And then how do you make sure you're pouring into yourself for that? So when I describe myself without my title, but that still embodies what I do, I say I fight for equity and advancement in education broadly and in STEM specifically. And my fight is global. So what do I have to do to be skilled in those areas? To make sure that I have the skills for education, access, and advancement, to have the skills for fighting for it in STEM. I have to have my STEM skills connected. So I made sure that I worked with my current department, electrical and computer engineering. I didn't have an adjunct position when I came. I asked for that because I wanted to make sure that I was still connected to my colleagues there. And then I move and continually to stay in organizations that are connected to STEM so that I have that as my linkage. So figure out professionally, we have to figure out professionally where we belong and where we have very close linkages, right? Where am I a committee chair? Where am I an officer in my professional organization? And then where are the organizations where I'm just going to sit on the side? I'm going to learn. I'm going to take in information. I'm just going to be one who just, takes in all of that knowledge that's coming. And you have to decide where you're going to move in these different areas. So there's some conferences that I go to, and there's some professional orgs where I'm just there in the background. I just have a general membership. I'm just sitting and learning. And then there are others where I'm intensely engaged. I'm talking to the president. I'm giving a talk. I just reached out to a president of an organization the other day, and I said, by the way, I'm coming. If there's anything that you need me to do, let me know what I can do while I'm there on the ground. And then all of a sudden, I'm on the program. I'm doing these different things. So sometimes you can volunteer yourself for certain things and then follow through with that thing that you volunteer for. You'll eventually become the go-to person, and then it can go from there. And it can translate into grants. It can translate into things that you ask for if you want to be potentially reclassed or have a raise or go for another job within the organization. All those things count.
Wow, thank you. So many opportunities. And I just think, reflecting on that is, understanding how this new skill can benefit the individual as well as the unit. And also really thinking about holistically who they are and what they want to communicate to the world about them, regardless of their title, independent of their title. So I thank you. And we only have a few minutes left.
Okay.
And I just want to close us out with just one more question.
Yes.
And that's on leadership and influence. So we have over 1,300 UC staff engaged in the NOW Conference activities today and this week. That's a huge community of colleagues here for similar reasons to grow and connect professionally. What advice would you share with everyone attending on how they can maximize this conference experience today and beyond today? So just one thing, because I know we only have like 3 minutes before we have to move forward.
Okay.
So yeah, just one thing, one piece of advice on how to do it today over the next few hours.
I would say take all of the information in and figure out what it means for you right now. I mean, the title of the conference is NOW, right? How does it benefit you right now in this space? How are you going to thrive with the information that you have learned today? And then you can start to make sure that it fits in with your personal background for your work-life balance, as well as for your professional life balance. I think if you can also think about how you want to move and navigate in your position, that can be helpful. You have to decide, I think, do you want to stay where you are because you're comfortable there and that's good and you just want to thrive there in a lateral way? If so, that's great. Figure out the best way to do that and to thrive there in that space. If you want to move to something different, start to think about the path that you want to chart, how you can get there, what's feasible, what the budget will bear, does it fit in with the university's mission and goals and the funding that they have available in those spaces, and see how it fits there. And then think about, I say that I try to be an authentic leader as well as one who can handle crisis management. It is a moniker that I've sort of put on recently, because I've had to realize that I've had to show up in different places and spaces where other people were not able to because they needed time to regroup. So I have then said, okay, I am also a crisis management leader. I show up, but in showing up, I also have to know how I need to regroup. And so you need to know, I think everyone needs to know what works for them. I'm an INFJ according to my Myers-Briggs. right? So I'm one of those people who will go in full bore to a conference, but then afterwards it's like, whew, okay, I need to lay down. I need to rest. I need to do something with my family. I need to listen to a song. Song I listened to this morning was a song called Be Strong by, I forgot her name, Samora or something. It's like, be strong, be courageous, don't be afraid. And sometimes you need to know what motivates you, what pushes you through. And whatever that is, do that so that you can do that in the now and so that you can thrive.
Wow, wow, such wonderful advice. So I am so inspired. What motivates you? Let that drive you today so you can upskill, reskill, thrive. So we've laid the foundation for the day. Thank you, Vice Chancellor Tull. I am going to give it back to Ying to share what's happening next.
Thank you so
Wow.
much.
Thank you, Dr. Tull. Thank you for your inspiring story and advice on growing your own career. I especially love what you said about uncharted path. Figure out what you want to go, figure out your path, and make sure you're on it and keep on going. You own your career, and what a great way to inspire and start our day. Let's give a virtual round of applause, and lots of thank yous are coming in. And shout outs to you, Dr. Tull, in the chat.